My parents-in-law were drunk, although the people in the hall were whispering to each other. My in-laws apparently didn't care about this, as they continued to curse at me. Well, I guess there's nothing to be done, since you've already gotten married. But if you're going to join a family, you have to prove to us that you have sufficient financial means. Yes, your father is right. So make sure to give it $4,000 a month annual bonus and its whole amount. I was completely shocked by their words. I never imagined that they would say such a thing at the wedding reception. I stared at my in-laws. The blood ran out of my face. My father took away the microphone from them. Enough is enough. Don't you people realize yet that you're making a complete fool of yourselves? My name is Mia. I am a 28-year-old office worker. I am currently in a relationship with someone. His name is Bob, and he is 30 years old, 2 years older than me. I met him through a friend of mine. My friend had been worried that I had no man in my life, so she introduced me to Bob. After we dated for a year, Bob proposed, and now we were soon to be married. I lost my mother when I was very young, and my father raised me single-handedly. My father worked very hard to take care of all my needs. I didn't have to worry about money while growing up, but the loss of my mom, who I loved very much, hurt me deeply. Because I had lost someone I had cared so deeply about, and not wanting to experience something like that again, I had a tendency to put on my brakes when it came to my emotions. Because of that, I had basically no experience dating anyone since my school days. I even thought it would be okay if I remained single for the rest of my life. Then I met Bob. At first, I didn't have any romantic feelings for him, but Bob asked me out many times. Bob really cared about me and was like a gentleman. I gradually started opening up my heart to Bob, and we started dating. He continued to care for me, and I felt very happy. He eventually became someone who was irreplaceable for me, and I began to think that I want to be with him for the rest of my life. Then he proposed to me, and we decided to get married. He understood everything about me. He was kind to me, no matter how anxious I was. Don't worry, if you're ever feeling anxious over something, I'll be at your side until you feel better. I love you, Mia. You can count on me. I was moved by his words. He swore to me that he would make me happy for the rest of my life. I was so happy to hear those words. Just being with him warms my heart. If he cares that much for me, I should do the same for him. That's what I thought. When I told my father that we decided to get married, he was crying with happiness. Wow, Mia, you're finally getting married. I'm so happy for you. Oh, Dad, don't be so dramatic. Well, I hadn't heard anything like that from you until now. I was always worried that you might never get married. Oh, really? Oh, I had no idea that you had been worried about that. Well, every father worries over his daughter, you know. Anyway, congratulations. Thanks, Dad. I was so happy to be congratulated by my dad, who had raised me single-handedly. I'd probably cry at the wedding. My dad will probably cry even more than me at the wedding, since he is already crying now. With that, Bob and I started to prepare for our wedding. Both of us were busy with our jobs, so our days were very hectic. We worked during the weekdays and made preparation for the wedding over the weekends. There was no time to rest at all, as the reschedulers were always filled up every day. And when we both had a day off, we were supposed to go visit Bob's parents' house so that I could meet them for the first time. Bob came over to our place to meet my father right after he proposed. Originally, I wanted to go visit Bob's parents to introduce myself to them right after that. But apparently, they were very busy people, and our schedules didn't work out. Some time had passed when we were finally able to go visit them. When I arrived at his parents' house, and I suddenly became nervous. Don't worry, my parents are very kind people. I felt a little relieved by Bob's words and pressed their doorbell. It was his mother who answered. "Mom, I'm home." "Welcome home, Bob. It's so good of you to come." His mother seemed very kind as she talked with her son. I greeted her as politely as I could. "Nice to meet you. My name is Mia, and I'm Bob's fiancée." "I see. So you're Mia," so said Bob's mother, but the pitch of her voice was much lower than the one she used when speaking to Bob, and her smile disappeared. She looked at me from top to bottom as if I were some kind of merchandise. After that, she led us to the living room, but her cold attitude towards me didn't change. "Mia, I wonder how much you're worth." "Sorry?" "Bob is our treasure and our only child. If you're going to marry him, you need to be a suitable wife for Bob. I wonder if you're worthy of it." I was taken aback by the question that seemed more than an interrogation. Well, I hadn't expected such a cold attitude from my in-law. I'm at a loss for words. "You're going to join a family, you know. Are you ready for that?" "It's true that if I marry Bob, I will join his family, but it's not like Bob's family are the Kennedys, nor have I heard that they were former aristocrat. It's not like I am marrying someone who owns an orchard. Why would I be asked to make such a commitment? Besides, I'm not even going to live with them. I don't need to be pressured by questions like these." As I was thinking like that, his mother, perhaps annoyed at my slow reply, his mother looked like the devil herself. "When I ask you a question, answer me right away. You're so ill-behaved. I'm asking if you're ready for this." As she continued to yell at me like that, I finally managed to get a few words out despite the pressure. "I hope that Bob and I will be able to support each other in our marriage." When I said that, his mother wasn't convinced. "What a spoiled thing to say. You aren't going to support each other. You are going to support Bob. It's your job as a wife to support your husband. You don't even understand the basics." Then his father, who was sitting next to Bob's mother, cut in and said, "Honey, calm yourself down." Well, sorry about that, Mia. You mustn't bring started with my wife's words." "Well, it's alright. His mother is very protective of her only son, Maybe she's just a little nervous and spoke such harsh words. His father spoke in a quiet, calm, and gentle tone. He must be a kind man. But my relief was short-lived. His father, still with a smile on his face, said the most unexpected words. What my wife says is actually justified. What concerns me the most is the fact that you come from a single-parent family. What do you mean by that? Well, to be raised by just one parent, it doesn't have a good public image. We can't be too happy to have such a person become the wife of our only son, can we? Oh, wait a minute. As you can imagine, I could not let this one pass. What is wrong with being raised by a single parent? My father worked very hard to raise me by himself. I am very grateful for that, and I am proud of my father. Being raised by a single parent doesn't make me any less valuable. Well, still the fact that you were missing one parent, you couldn't have learned how to be a good wife and do housework and things like that. As for housework, I did as much as I could so as not to overburden my father. I can also cook pretty well, so please don't say that. Even though I said so, Bob swore to ignore my words. And finally, he said this. I will allow you to marry Bob. In exchange, you must promise to devote everything to Bob. That means you will do everything we ask you to do because we are Bob's parents. Can you promise me that? What? Well, since you came here to ask for our permission to marry our son, you do know what your duties are, don't you? Before I could say anything more, he carried on with the conversation. I found that my in-laws had completely monopolized this conversation and had little opportunity to argue with them. The night, as I grew more anxious about the marriage, I decided to confide my feelings to Bob. Say, Bob, does your father and mother always talk to people like that? What? Yeah, what about it? What about it? I was surprised that Bob didn't find anything wrong with what his parents said to me. Well, I mean, what your parents said to me and how they said them were pretty terrible this afternoon. Oh, really? Well, they were talking about whether I was prepared for this marriage. I understand that your parents are worried about their son's marriage, but what can I say? I just feel like what your parents were saying were a bit too much. Really? Why is that? My parents didn't say anything wrong. Besides, they were giving us the permission to get married, so don't worry about it. That's true, but the fact that Bob seemed to be on his parents' side rather than mine was very disconcerting. I guess he realized I was feeling anxious. He gave me a hug. Mia, you don't have to worry so much. My parents are just a little upset because their only son is getting married. He was talking to me as if he didn't approve of me at all. It's all going to be fine. Don't think so much. I'm sure that they just want what's best for us. They just want us to be as good of a couple as they are. That's why their words are a bit harsh. Oh, really? Like he said, maybe his parents have high expectations for us. Even if that's the case, I don't think it's right to belittle me because I was raised by my father. I don't think people who say that are a good couple. We're the ones getting married, and we're supposed to be the stars of the show. It's not like they disapprove of our marriage. Since he put it that way, although I was a little anxious, I decided not to think too much about his parents. Then, the day of the wedding arrived. We had many guests to congratulate us, including our relatives, friends, colleagues, and bosses. I walked down the aisle with my father, who had raised me up to this point in my life. Bob and I exchanged our marriage vows and our rings. We were showered with applause, and for the first time, I realized that I was getting married to Bob. I felt happiness I had never felt before, and I felt like I was walking on clouds as we made our way into the reception hall. Homemade videos of the bride and the groom were shown as part of the entertainment. A very pleasant time passed. I talked with friends I hadn't seen in a while. Many people congratulated us. I was worried about his parents, but I was glad that I decided to marry Bob after all. I am glad that I decided to marry Bob. After the ceremony, we would register our marriage and truly become husband and I. I was appreciating every moment and was filled with happiness. The time passed quickly and it was finally the final. The bride, groom, and each other's parents lined up in front to greet the guests. But this is where I began to feel uneasy. The reason for this was none other than his parents. We were all supposed to be standing in line, but his parents were unsteady on their feet. If you look closely, you could see that his parents' faces were bright red. Apparently, they had drunk too much. Their relatives were asking them if they were alright. My in-laws looked really drunk, but for now, we had to wrap up the ceremony and get it over with. The moderator handed the microphone to me and Bob. The next moment, Bob's mother snatched the microphone away from us. His mother shouted at me as if she were a professional wrestler, shouting words of provocation at me. You listen to me, Mia. You are going to be our slave after this wedding. As I told you last time, you are going to devote yourself to us completely. Prepare yourself because we are going to train you real hard. The guests were whispering to each other, but some must thought that it was a joke. I could hear them laughing. Then next Bob's father snatched the microphone. Mia, don't you feel embarrassed to wear a dress like that? It doesn't sweat you at all. Dear, you shouldn't tell her the truth. As expected, people began to whisper to each other in a different way. I asked Bob to stop his father's outburst, but Bob didn't. Bob said that he couldn't do that and that his parents weren't doing anything wrong. He would never protect me from his parents in the future. That was the moment I knew for sure. Even though the hall was buzzing, my in-laws were drunk and they continued to curse at me. Well, if you've already gotten married, there's nothing more to be done. But if you want to join a family, you have to prove to us that you have the financial resources to do so. Yes, he got that right. So, after you register your marriage at the city hall, you give a few $1,000s a month and your entire bonus salary. I was taken aback by his words and never thought that he would say such a thing at the wedding reception. As I stared at them, with the blood draining from my face, my father took the microphone away from his parent. Enough of this. Don't you people realize yet that you are making a fool of yourselves? Despite the fact that my father said this with some degree of respect, his parent glared at my father. What are you trying to interrupt us while we're talking? I knew this woman's father was no good. That's why single parents are never any good. Why do they talk the way they do? How dare he insult my father? My father sighed and calmly replied, You people are even worse than I imagined. You even refused to meet with me because I am a single father. I never imagined that someone like that would be working for President Anderson. President Anderson is such a wonderful character. I thought his employees must also be good people. When my father said that, my father-in-law's expression suddenly turned severe. How do you know the president? He's president and my company's business partner, and more importantly, he's an old friend of mine. More importantly, you mentioned earlier about single parents. President Anderson was raised by his mother alone. In other words, you made fun of the president of the company you work for. My in-law's face paled at my father's comment. He probably understood what the mess he had gotten himself into. I apologize, sir. Please could you not say this to the president? Saying that, my in-law started to get down on his knees. A moment ago, he was acting as though he were a king. I was so excited to be the one to take charge of this place, but now he looks like a foreign warrior, and I could hear laughter from the guests. There were even people who took out their cell phones to take videos of the scene. No matter how much you apologize, you can't erase your words, my dad said. My dad walked up to me and asked if I wanted to go back home with him. I said yes and took the microphone from Bob's hand. Thank you very much for the great entertainment. There will be no marriage, I told Bob and his parents. And to all of you who attended, I will make sure to return the money you gave us for this occasion. And I left the reception hall with my dad. I caught a glimpse of him and his parents in a date, but soon after, his relatives rushed over and I saw them yelling with some terrible expressions on their faces. It must be a complete chaos now. I went around apologizing to the guests as I returned their money. They all expressed their sympathy for me. They praised both me and my dad for what we did, saying it was good we weren't taken advantage of by such terrible people. After that, Bob's coworkers who had attended the reception must have told his company about what happened, and Bob became famous for having such deluded parents and was accused of having an Oedipus complex. Bob's pride was so high that he couldn't stand it any longer and resigned voluntarily. And of course, the president of my father-in-law's company found out about the incident. Bob's father was sent to some unimportant division of the company and was transferred to an office in the countryside somewhere. Incidentally, I heard that his family has been disowned by all his relatives because of the wedding. Well, it's their own fault, and I guess it can be helped. Meanwhile, I reaffirmed my bond with my dad. Mia, are you interested in running the business? Do you mean? Why don't you try working towards becoming the president of my company? I'll do my best. I decided to focus on stepping up my game at work rather than romance for now, so that I can become a great president like my dad. I am currently working at my father's company and desperately trying to learn the job. Mia's in-laws are incredible people, ruining a wedding reception like that. But it's a good thing that they were able to break up before registering their marriage. Now that Mia has nothing to worry about, she can go on to be the president in peace. I wish Mia all the best. Thank you for watching to the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you like. See you in the next video.